The sex magic of Isis is a method for the elevation of consciousness, and this is done through the energies and ecstasy created through sex. Mary Magdalene was raised in the understanding of magic. Her father was from Mesopotamia and her mother from Egypt. When she was 12 years old, she was sent to study with the secret sisterhood of Initiate under wings of Isis. She was trained in the secret of Egypt, the Alchemist of Horus, and the sexual magic of the Isis cult. She shared some secrets of her training in Tom Keyon and Judy Sion's book, The Magdalen Manuscript, The Alchemist of Horus and the Sex Magic of Isis. The sex magic of Isis is based upon the realization that the feminine principle holds within her nature, specifically her sexual nature, an alchemical key. This alchemical key is revealed in the act of what we call sexual love. When this is activated strongly enough, the alchemies of Horus spontaneously present themselves. There were two paths, alchemically speaking, to the same goal. The alchemies of Horus were the foundation of both alchemies or practices, since the same fundamental pathways were used. For those who didn't wish to engage in partnership, the Alchemist of Horus will provide a means to strengthen and activate the Ka body, which is the etheric double or spiritual twin to the levels of High Initiateship. For those in partnership, the sexual magic of Isis will provide the wings by which they will ascend the Djed, which is the sacred pathway of the chakras, and enter the throne of highest consciousness. The sex magic of Isis is precisely a method for the elevation of consciousness, which is in itself magic, and this is done through the energies and ecstasy created through sex. There are two reasons why the term magic is used in this context. The first one refers to the transformation of the individual human into God. This is indeed magic. It is symbolized by the god Horus, part man, part hog. And through the practices of alchemy, individual human is raised to the status of high god Horus, meaning that one has attained the most elevated states of consciousness. The other reason the term magic is used is that there are methods, once the Ka body is potentized, that one can use to affect one's reality in a very direct ways, in methods that seems magical. If we take, for instance, the basic core principles of the Alchemist of Horus, the raising of the black and gold serpents up the spine, the creation of the chalice, the activation of the internal fire of Ra, and the meeting of the red and white serpentine drops, are all acts of magic, acts of intent, and both personal and spiritual will. This is why it is referred to as magic. It is possible to scale the heights of consciousness alone, without partnership, and in this the alchemists of Horus were designed to assist the initiate. For those in partnership, sacred relationship, there are several aspects of the sex magic of Isis. The first of these is the understanding that at the moment of orgasm, magnetic fields are generated. In truth, these fields are created through what we called foreplay, the stimulation of the senses through touch. This sensory stimulation begins the process of building the magnetic fields and is crucial to the alchemical practice of sex magic. There are several methods available to initiate, but essentially to the practice is the understanding of the nature of the interaction of the two alchemical elements within the man and the woman. On the mundane level, the semen of the man carries the information of his genetic lineage, which is passed on to the child. When the sperm within the semen joins with the eggs of the woman, life is created, and life is a complex interconnecting of magnetic fields. The growing child within the womb develops organs and systems, but at the magnetic level, these can be viewed as interconnecting, complex vibrational and magnetic fields. And so, at the mundane level, the act of sex creates new patterns of magnetics. Initiates trained in alchemy use the sexual energy to also create complex magnetic fields, but these fields do not become a new being, a child. They become incorporated into the ka bodies of the two initiates themselves, strengthening and elevating their ka bodies. These are the first essential points to understand. Everything revolves around this. The task of the initiate within this system is to strengthen the ka body beyond the confine of the physical form or khat. The next level to understand has to do with the emotional tuning of the female initiate. For the female initiate, receptivity is dependent upon her emotional state. This is a part of her nature. It cannot be sidestepped if these techniques are to work. Essential to the female initiate is the authentic feeling of safety and love, or appreciation at the very least. When these are in place, something within her being lets go and allows the alchemy to occur. The alchemy is created by the joining of the male initiate ka and the female initiate ka. As they make love, the ka bodies interconnect, and this causes the female to open her magnetic flow. This term comes from the language used in the templates of Isis. The magnetic flow is the foundation upon which one stands. When we set something to be secure, we place it on the floor. So the flow was used as a type of slang within the templates, referring to the very basic piece that is required, the fundamental piece that has to occur. As the two initiate continuing in their love-making, and as the passion of their connecting increases, powerful chemicals are released in the brain and in the body. These transport the initiate into another space than their normal ways of being. This further opens the magnetic fields and generate an increase in magnetics. There are two options to the male initiate at the moment of orgasm. He can ejaculate or hold his seed. If he ejaculates and the previous conditions have been met, there is an instantaneous reaction that occurs within the womb of the female. As the energetic essence of his sperm strikes the walls of her inner sanctum, there is an explosion of magnetic energy, worlds within worlds spinning. And to the extent that the male initiate has attained a high status as well as the female, the magnetics released from such contact between such sexual fluids can be enormous. So it is important to understand that this creates complex magnetics that both the male and the female can draw into their bodies. A second phenomenon occurs in which the female initiate may begin to shake uncontrollably. As she shakes, the center of it is usually the womb itself, which sets off a cascade, a rocking effect in the pelvis. This action also creates very complex magnetic fields, which the male and female initiate can draw into their ka bodies. This is the fundamental or basic understanding. As initiate, it is possible to also cause the serpent powers to rise within the spine during the sex act, and wherever the two serpents meet, will tend to magnetize the chakra and its attendant abilities or powers. In a very real sense, the male initiate faces the greatest challenges in the practice of the sex magic of Isis, for it requires that he seemingly go against his raw nature. By nature, the male is electric from the alchemical standpoint, while the female is magnetic. It is the nature of electricity to move and to act, while it is the nature of magnetics to nest, enfold. In the practice, the focus becomes the strengthening of the Ka body through the incorporation of magnetic fields released by the sex act. Right after orgasm, the magnetic field generated by the female initiate continue to spiral and circulate. This is a time to rest and be with the magnetics. But by nature, males tend to either get up and do something or go to sleep. The male initiate must train himself to nest, to allow the magnetics that have been created to spiral into his Ka and his body. This is different from what occurs normally, for in the male, orgasm is confined to the pelvic area, and in some cases it spreads. But for the female initiate, especially one who have been able to relax into the experience, the organ spreads through the entire body and can continue in various levels of intensity for several hours. As the male initiate nests in the magnetics, his Ka body becomes stronger and his sexual energy becomes more potent. One of the tasks of the male initiate is to sensitize himself to new levels of feeling so that he can incorporate the magnetic fields released through the sex into his rowan body and Ka. Nesting means that the male remains close to the female, touching, stroking, being with the physical sensations and the emotions after orgasm. It is through the portal of nesting that the male initiate is able to enter the feminine mysteries of creation. Another aspect that the male initiate needs to be aware of is what is called adoration of the beloved. As the alchemy of the sex magic becomes stronger, there are certain things that occur. One of these is that beloved becomes adored or cherished. This happens both for the male and female initiate. When adoration of the beloved occurs from both partners, the alchemy and sex magic greatly intensifies. For the harmonics and magnetics created by such emotion are very beneficial to the magic. There is another aspect facing the male initiate in this process, and it has to do with what in these temples is referred to as obstacle to flight, or in other words, psychological issues. There are attitudes, beliefs, and emotional habits that are counterproductive to flight or the elevation to consciousness. It is here for the male initiate that one of the most indicated passages requiring great skill occurs. As a child, the male was carried by his mother in her womb and protected and nurtured by his mother in his infancy until a point where he had autonomy and could act for himself. At this point, the male child pushes the mother away, so to speak, in order to face the world. It is at this juncture in his development that he may feel confined or limited by his mother, and a battle of wills can ensue. As a man, as a male initiate, he may still carry these emotional habits within him. If this is the case, he will find it difficult to relax into the nesting of the magnetic fields, since at the psychological level, it is experienced as surrendering to the feminine. If the male initiate has issues with his mother of childhood, he may engage this consciously or unconsciously with his partner. It is important to both initiates undertaking the sex magic devices to realize that they are embarking on a long journey and that the process is essentially one of alchemy. The purpose of alchemy is to transform one substance into another. It does this by burning off the negativity of a substance so that the pure substance remains or is created. In the process of the sex magic of Isis, the substances transform literally the sexual fluids, hormones, neurotransmitters, and other substances not yet discovered by our science, but is also involved a transformation of one's psychology. By nature, the sex magic of Isis step up the alchemical process. The heat gets turned up, so to speak, the dross becomes clear, and that which needs to be purified comes painfully into focus. If one does not understand that this is one of the byproduct of alchemy, one might be disturbed by the arising of difficult psychological material. But actually this is one of the results, for the internal pressure created through the sex magic of Isis causes the car body to extrude or press out of itself all impurities and to clear itself of all obstacle to flight. In those practicing alone without a partner, the Alchemist of Horus also creates internal pressure, extruding impurities. But the task is more difficult in that the energy required comes from one's raw and personal efforts, and there is not the benefit of reflection from another. Whether one practices the solitary path through the Alchemist of Horus or the path of sacred relationship through the sex magic of Isis, one is stepping upon the road of godhood. The central key in this journey is the strengthening of the ka through ecstatic states of consciousness. Whether self-generated or created through the ecstasy of sex doesn't inherently matter. The ka is nurtured and potentized by ecstatic states, regardless of their source. On the contrary, shame is a poison to the ka body, a toxic element that decreases its vitality and potency. Mary Magdalen, as an initiate of Isis, finds it tragic that the Church has shamed women and men around their sexual natures and closed the door on one of the most direct paths to God realization. Her advice is to free ourselves of all shame and find every opportunity to create ecstasy, for it strengthens and potentizes our ka, our etheric body. There are some loose threads concerning the practice of alchemy and the sex magic of Isis. For the male initiate, it is essential to understand that it is the magnetic fields created first by the touching and stroking of the female initiate that starts the cascade of magnetic fields, building an intensity to the point of orgasm. It is important that the male initiate train himself to be able to nest in the magnetic field. It is extremely important to both initiate to place their attention on the ka body during the ecstatic state of consciousness that are generated by their lovemaking, for the strengthening and potentize the ka body. At the moment of physical orgasm, there is a tendency for the magnetic surge to move either up through the top of the head or down through the feet. But in either case, this magnetic field exits the body and dissipates. It is important during the moment of orgasm to contain the magnetic field or surge. Ideally, the initiate would place his awareness in the upper brain centers. This would cause the surge of organs to raise up into the head, sending its energy into the brain itself and into the ka body. The same-sex partners were a rare form of partnership, but which sometimes occur within the initiate of Isis. According to Mary Magdalene, while the building of magnetic fields and the nesting in these fields and the arising of a static state can be created through same-sex partners, the interaction of semen and the womb does not occur, and so this aspect of the alchemy is not present. However, all other aspects of the alchemy and the sex magic are relevant. I invite you to visit my website, Knowledge and Abundance, to learn more about the world of spirituality and mystery of life. Much love, happiness, and blessings to you. I appreciate you. Thank you.